Today, we simplify the evolution of fiber broadband with Edward Boyd, VP of PON R&D at Ciena. In this Broadband Connect episode, we discuss the benefits, economics, and opportunities of next-gen PON technologies. Learn about the transition from GPON to XGS, 25 gig, 50 gig, and 100 gig, with expert insights to guide key business decisions shaping the future of broadband. Thank you all for joining. Today we have Ed Boyd, VP of PON R&D at Ciena. Thanks, Ed, for joining us, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks, Dustin. Happy to be here. So I run the PON R&D group here at Ciena. I came in through an acquisition. Ciena acquired a startup company that I was a part of called Tibit Communications. I was the CTO and VP of engineering there. We make PON optical MAC plus PHY transceivers. And so we created that product, and Ciena was a customer. Ciena liked the product a lot and used it as part of their solution, and they acquired us about 2 years ago.
Okay, well, thanks, Ed. And once again, thank you for joining us. And we look forward to this excellent discussion that we're going to have. So just diving right in, how have PON technologies evolved over the last decade? And what are the key inflection points that have happened in this last decade?
Sure. PON has changed a lot from its early inception. I think early on, it started out as a way to carry TDM services. And, as broadband evolved, it changed over to packet services. And obviously the increase in bandwidth needs has meant PON has grown as far as the amount of bandwidth it needs. So what you've seen is a gradual increase from 155 megabits to 622 to a gigabit, 10 gigabit, 25 gigabit now, and 50 and 100. So the one thing I can guarantee you is that the speed will increase, as I don't know what applications will require it, but definitely PON will continue to increase in speed.
Yeah, so talking about bandwidth needs and, technology changes, and, you and I, we're in and out of this day to day, and we see so many changes. What do you really feel like are the key drivers between from operators that have GPON today? What do you think the real drivers are that are moving them to XGS PON? And then are there any type of applications that you see that are driving these bandwidth demands to make these operators need to change their network as fast as they're changing it currently?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a couple of factors that come into play. I mean, from an operator point of view, it's all about what you can offer, right? What service plan you can offer. Can you offer a 1 gig, a 2 gig, a 5 gig service? From the consumer point of view, the question is, how much do I get for the price, right? And in the old days, you would get a T1 for 1.5 megabits, right? And you'd have a dedicated line. It would be just for you. With PON, you're getting a shared line, but you get bandwidths that are much higher. You get a 1 gigabit. You can, get that 5 gigabit SLA that you see start to show up. And so, from an operator point of view, obviously there's good revenue in providing the higher bandwidth services. From a consumer point of view, when I do something, I want it to happen quickly. It's not about just the application. It's about my time, the value of my time. Do I have the quality of the experience matters, of course, but it's also, when I want to download a file, when I want to upload a design or something like that, how quickly does that happen? And I can get back to work on the things I care about. So I think it's a lot of that. Now, performance does start to show up as people do things that that are interactive. You start to see a lot more interactive applications, obviously the gaming and such.
Yeah.
These kind of things require a lower latency. And that's one of the great things about PON and fiber is that you can get a low latency in addition to, really powerful bit error rate performance, right? Low frame loss and high bandwidth. So the key things that would matter to consumer.
Yeah, it seems like, everything we're seeing kind of in our PON strategies across different operators, it's all about the consistency and for the end customer, right? Customers nowadays, if they're down a minute, 2 minutes, the old equation of time equals money, that seems to be a heavy play for a lot of different operators out there. And, even consumers, that's consumer retention. A lot of that has, is based upon metrics nowadays, NPS scores. So I know that's extremely important to a lot of operators, and a lot of them are having challenges getting a lot of these, new technologies deployed. In your opinion, what are really the industry challenges that are out there for operators that are trying to get from one technology to the next?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think once you've deployed a lot of something, the big cost in that deployment is digging, trenching, pulling the fiber, getting to the consumer. In addition to that, it's putting the devices out at the home and getting that customer established. What you can't do is require new fiber, right? Require trenching, right? That's that cost can't come back, right? So you want to utilize what you have in the ground, right? In addition to that, you can't take down or replace all the items in the home to upgrade. And so the big challenge is always a coexistence model, the ability to upgrade without disrupting the service. And it has to exist over the fiber plant that was already built. And so with new technology, you have to go at a higher speed, but you have to do it over whatever existed before. You can't use the latest fiber. You can't shorten the lengths. You can't cut down the number of splits. These kind of things, obviously would change the network too much, and that would cause a massive cost impact.
Yeah, I think you guys, hear it every day, and I know we do too. The least that they have to go into a customer's home, then that definitely speeds up deployment. It helps with the overall solutions from end to end, and most operators don't even entertain it nowadays if they have to touch that end subscriber, right? So being integrated in a way that you can deploy different technologies seamlessly with the least intrusive amount of way of doing it, that seems to be what most operators are looking for in kind of their installation and forklifting, if you will. That's a term that gets used every once in a while. If they don't have to cause downtime, they don't have to, go in and replace equipment every time they change technologies. That's a huge benefit. So, yeah. So, we're talking about, XGS currently, a lot of operators are deploying XGS. Really, from what we're seeing on the market standpoint, everybody's looking to say, okay, what about 25 gig? What can we do with 25 gig? When's it going to be available? There's seems to be a lot of drive around 25 gig right now. And, do you think that's vendor driven, or do you think it's broadband policies as a whole being the driver? In some markets, on the commercial aspect of it, for enterprise customers, business customers, it makes a lot of sense just for some of the deployments types that exist, because previous to now, you would have customers that would do dedicated internet circuits to customers, and they wouldn't be over a GPON or XGS-PON. But some customers are asking for 25 gig PON for that particular use case, and then some are asking for it for residential services. So how do you kind of see that?
So 25 gig allows the 10 gig service. That's if what I hear from customers, the reason they want 25 gig is simply for that. They have subscribers that would like to get a 10 gig service. And that 10 gig service might be from the residential space, might be from enterprise, but nevertheless, it's over PON. There are places and customers that are touched by PON fiber. And 25GS is a nice solution in that it overlays on top of 1 gig or 10 gig, or even both. So you could have a fiber with all three speeds potentially over the same fiber plant. And an operator could go after those customers that are looking for 10 gig SLAs. And then eventually you would roll your customers into the higher speeds as the general bandwidth demands go up. But from the number one reason is that 10 gig SLA. The ONU has a 10 gig UNI port, and with the 25 gig PON minus overhead, you've got close to 20 gigabits per second of traffic, both upstream and downstream. So to have a 20 or 10 gig service is easily handled, right? And
right.
So that's generally the driver for it.
Yeah. Out of some of the discussions that we've had, that 10 gig SLA, a lot of operators don't consider the overhead, and they get hit with the gotcha, right? So yeah, we see that in a lot of the discussions that we're having today with operators, and they're really trying to future-proof their networks, but be it, over investing or just a technological, factor of making sure that they don't have to forklift or replace chassis or, do all these things that operators really, really, really don't like doing. In that, there's different ways of doing it. I know there's pluggable OLT modules that exist in the networks today. There's OLT shelves. If you had advice for operators that are looking to upgrade their network and future-proof their network, what would be your statement to them to give them guidance on what are the smartest decisions that they could make to, maybe if they even had to spend a little bit extra money up front, but later on save a lot more capital expense for maybe the next 10 years?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's two things that an operator has to do as they build up their network. Obviously, you've got to get the physical plant done. But if you look on the OLT side, it's about having enough bandwidth in the switching that gets you there. With a pluggable micro OLT, you need an Ethernet port. And so having a switch that services your area that allows you to plug in different speeds of PON and then just combine them onto the fiber is easy, right? Give yourself enough space. Have different speeds of Ethernet ports allow you to plug in and go after where you want to add the service. Because the question is, what you don't want to have to do when you want to deploy a new speed is rip out the boxes and put in another big box. With overlay, the idea is that you add the additional PON, OLT port, mix it into the fiber, and then provide that service quickly. And so by providing multi-speed Ethernet ports and using pluggable OLTs, that's pretty straightforward to do. And you can do that, surgically and selectively.
So Ed, we talked about 5 to 10 years and the evolution of PON technology. What really excites you about what you're doing in this industry, and kind of what do you see as the roadblocks that we're going to run into?
Yeah, so one of the exciting new technologies that's in standardization is the 100 gig coherent PON. I think that, again, still just on paper, but it provides another overlay. It's the next overlay. Just like you said, GPON, you overlay onto that same exact fiber, 10 gig, then 25 gig, 50, potentially 100. And 100 is really interesting in that with the coherent technology, it gives you more optical budget. It allows you one OLT port to span multiple PONs. It allows you to get to a full 100 gigabit per second of service throughput. And it allows you to pick up a lot of the virtual point-to-point solutions. So things where operators would have pulled point-to-point fiber for, with 100 gig, and in fact, even multiple 100 gigs because it's a tunable 4x100. This technology will allow you to pick up more services. So again, I think the goal of PON is to reach, every home, every business, every place that fiber would need to go. And what 100 gig PON allows you to do is on that same fiber, pick up more of the services that would have required trenching, right? And drop new fiber, which is, that's your huge, cost and penalty. I mean, otherwise, if I look at the industry right now, Dustin, the biggest thing is that in the US and Europe and some places that PON hasn't shown up, it is showing up. There's government interest in funding it. There's, obviously some of the other technologies are running out of steam, like DSL, and you're seeing a replacement of those services. So just the general, pulling of the fiber, getting to that vision that, fiber is everywhere, I think is an exciting time. And something I'm certainly happy to see after working in PON since probably 1997.
Yeah, that's crazy because let's see, I started in telecom in '99, so dates us back a little bit. So it's just real interesting to see just kind of how all of it's unfolding, right? We kind of crawled for many years across all technologies, and then all of a sudden it exploded, right?
Yeah.
And now it seems like you can't keep up. There's just technology, jump after technology jump after technology jump.
Yep.
A lot of operators have the questions of, when is it a good time to invest in products? When is it not a good time, or should I wait? A lot of customers and operators, when I say customers, I mean operators, if you had a word of advice to them when they're looking at different technologies, let's just say they're on GPON today and they're pretty happy there. It kind of meets all the check boxes for all their customers that they serve. And they really aren't looking at the next step. What would you say to them when they're in that spot, right? They're comfortable and everything's good, and their normal day to day is livable and everything's great, right? What would you say to them to say, hey, at least consider starting to make that next step? Because one of the key points I guess I'm trying to make is technology changes so fast nowadays. It's not like it used to be. Um, what advice would you have for those operators?
Yeah. So once you've trenched, once you pulled that fiber to the consumers, once you reach those consumers, the hard work has been done. Adding a higher speed PON on either side doesn't disrupt those customers. You still got that revenue base, but now you're opening up new revenue. So you have that. The gold in the ground is the fiber. Once you have that gold in the ground, if you don't overlay, if you don't put higher bandwidth on top of that, that there's revenue that you're potentially missing out on. So my advice is to take advantage of the fact that you have fiber, that it has multiple wavelengths and the coexistence of the higher speeds. To take advantage of that, because when you trenched, you did the hard work. That was the real work. Changing the electronics is much easier.
Yeah, and I wanted to add a key point that you guys probably have these conversations with customers too that are faced with whether whatever funding that's out there today, whatever operator is building their networks out. A lot of times, the smaller operator is something else to consider is if you have that top technology, other competitors probably won't consider even building into your territories because you have that already. And we see this pretty commonly with different operators that haven't upgraded. Then there's interest gathered from other parties, and then you're faced with competing against the similar product, right? So if I had anything to add to that, it would just be, be aware of your surroundings and what technologies exist, because there are a lot of companies, whether it be whatever country you're in, companies are really heavily investing in, that next technology to serve to their customers and outside their footprint. So, it can be used for multiple different strategies from an operator standpoint. So Ed, I know that you told us that you started in PON last year. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
It's been a few years, right?
Early last year.
Right. So you had many years to think about this question that I'm going to present to you. So, from 97 to now, through all the things that, all the different aspects of PON that you've been part of, what do you really like, or love doing, in broadband PON? What are the things that you extremely enjoy about the industry that you're in?
It's always changing, right? It's never content.
Absolutely.
Right. And that's, there's so many facets, both from the international, to, the different types of operators, whether it's, backhauling wireless or all of these kind of things. There's always a challenge. And every time that you think that new speed isn't possible, somehow that door opens. And that's just the greatest part of it, really, is to look on paper and see, hey, that might actually work. And
yeah, I think I've been part of those discussions from time to time when everybody is kind of sitting back going, this seems logical, but we'll have to play with a little bit, right?
That's exactly it. You sit there and you think, oh, maybe that should work. And then when you actually see it work, and it's sometimes many years down the road, as you know, Dustin, these things don't happen overnight, right? I mean, we're talking about a new speed or a new technology, and it's just great to see, something from the whiteboard show up, and everybody uses it now. It's you don't have to explain it to people anymore.
I think for me, the most rewarding thing that I see, right, is, you know, even with your own kids, your own family members. And I think if you're in this industry, if you've not had these questions about, you know, why's my Wi-Fi out? Why's my speed? Why am I getting the swirling, you know, buffering icon? Or, you know, right now we've got, you know, a bunch of football games that are going on, and people are really enjoying seeing, you know, all these games on IPTV, and, you know, you name it. You go to any business that's out there, that you credit card transactions, you know, any of the streaming services, to see consumers actually use the products and enjoy the products for the operators that we are able to do business with, as a whole, as an industry, and make quality of life better for different people on education. And, you know, even something as what we consider simple now as travel, right? There's a lot of moving pieces behind that. So for me, I think it's looking at the average consumer and saying that consumer is able to do everything, they're able to live their life, and our industry makes it that much easier for them to be able to do the things that they love to do, right?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah, I think that's the most enjoyable part for me, is just seeing it end to end.
Absolutely. Yeah. Do you remember the days when you'd say, well, I have to go to work to get good internet? And now you have people actually saying, I get better internet at home than I do at work.
Absolutely, right?
And that's, you know, that tells you how much this industry has evolved and what it's become, right? That you can get great internet, do everything you need to do, that you would have done at work, you can do from home. And that's amazing where it's been over the last 10, 20 years.
Well, Ed, you know, I appreciate your time today. You know, taking out of your work day and sitting down with us and kind of giving us your perspective on, you know, how you see PON evolving. And, you know, we can't say thank you enough, and we greatly appreciate it. Thanks again for joining us.
My pleasure, Justin. It's been wonderful. Thank you for the great conversation.